Okay, I'm showing 10 o'clock. Why don't we go ahead and call the meeting to order? This is our 2022 budget hearing for the 2022-23 budget. Do we have an agenda we can pull up?
I didn't have it in time to post it, but basically it's a call to order and then mayor's comments and then my presentation.
Well, let's go ahead and do roll call, make sure we've got a quorum, although I can actually see a quorum in the window screens. Let's see, Mayor Pro-tem Pam Plaza contacted me this morning. She's going to be 30 minutes late. Assemblyman Bill Riker.
Bill Riker, present.
Pat Huddleston.
Pat Huddleston here.
And Jim Blair, and I think Jim said he was not going to be able to attend the meeting. But we do have a quorum right now, and hopefully Pam will be joining us in 30 minutes. As far as the comments, well, I guess the only thing I'm really commenting on right now is the fire, and it's at 74% containment, and they are rapidly rolling resources off of the fire. We went down there, Pat, myself, and Greg Ford went down there to drop off the last supplies. I guess it was Tuesday. They had already gone from 300 to 150. Our liaison officer stopped by town hall yesterday afternoon to let us know that he's been now reassigned to him as Springs, and that by the end of the week, the expectation is that everybody that's over there in that incident command center will have rotated either to probably to one of the other two major fires which is going on. There's one down in the Gila that's as of this morning's at 77,000 acres and not much containment, or over to Hermit's Peak, which is now past 300,000 acres. And I think it's about 34% containment, if I remember correctly, as of this morning. So while ours is going better, certainly they've got a long ways to go. The expectation is that this will continue to burn for quite a while, and they're going to eventually transition it over to the local units to do the mopping up action, which will be Cochiti Wildland Fire, the Bears Head crew, and the Los Alamos Wildland Fire teams will wind up working with ours to do the final mop up. That said, why don't we go ahead and get into the meeting? Marsha, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. We'll start with the general fund. That's the ugliest of them all. Okay. Now, just so you know what you're looking at, I have the budget split up into classes. So starting over to the left, starting with accounting and then capital outlay and then general administrative. And under each class, the first column is the year-to-date numbers through the end of March. The second column is the current year's budget, and then the column in blue is the new budget, preliminary budget for fiscal year 23. Can everybody see the spreadsheet? Okay. And when I roll it, do you see that as well?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right. Okay, so we'll start with the accounting. This first set of numbers here is the property taxes, and I kept everything the same as it has been for the last couple of years. They're pretty modest numbers. I mean, already year to date, we've collected 59,000, or as of the end of March. So, I mean, we stand to collect a little bit more than what the budget calls for, but I'd rather be safe than sorry and not put too much in there. So that's what we have for the taxes, the current year taxes to collect, the prior year taxes to collect, and then any penalties and interest. Next below that is charges that we collect for printing and copying for residents, and or any kind of other things that the town might get paid for by citizenry.
Marsha, why are we going from 20? Why are we going up so much on that? It's not a big number, from 25 to 450, but why do you expect to give that significant a difference?
Well, the 25 is what was collected so far, Don, and we haven't reckoned the. We have some cash here that we need to deposit, which I don't even know how much is in there.
Okay.
So
25 is probably a little more. 25 does not reflect what we currently have then, what we've received.
No, it should be a little higher than that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Then when we come down here to miscellaneous revenues, we're budgeting $2,600 for interest and dividends. We're actually in a deficit right now because we're losing money instead of making money on our investments, just like everybody else in the country. But
well, I guess if inflation is this being driven up from 730 to 2,600 because of interest rates going up?
730 is an actual number.
Right. Why do we anticipate it going to 2,600?
That's just a maximum estimate of what we could collect.
Okay.
Interest rates are up.
They are, and that's what I was wondering, if that's what's driving it. Certainly our cost structure is going up because of interest rates going up. I would hope at least our income would come up a little too.
It'd be nice.
But also that first column, the first column is just July 21 through March 22. It's not a whole fiscal year. So that's probably
correct.
Part of it also.
That's
I understand, but even doubling it, it's a 6-month look. Even if you double it, that only takes it up to about 1,500.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, as of even last month, we were losing money instead of gaining. So I really don't expect us to come anywhere close to the 2,600 for this current year. If we won't even break zero. I don't think we're going to stay in the negative for this current year.
Yeah. How do we lose money? I thought everything was in pretty much T-bills.
There's just enough that's still invested that's not in a CD. Most everything is in CDs.
Okay.
But there's still enough there that we're losing. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, this next section down here that's the money coming in. So it's again going to be $120,000 that we get from the LCAA. So that makes our income, the total income, all of these things added together, $193,750.
Okay.
Okay. So now we're getting into expenses. And again, we're in the accounting column. So the salary and wages here and the employee benefits, that's all basically my payroll for my position. So it's, I left it the same as it was for last year, except for the workers' compensation fees. That $2 was not enough. That was a mistake on my part last year. So I bumped that up to $10. It's like $2.30 a quarter or something like that. So that's what all that is. And then you come down here, and here is the audit contract. So altogether, the audit's going to cost us just under $10,000, and we're splitting it 50-50 with the fire department. So we're covering $5,000 of it with the general fund budget, and then the other $5,000 will be covered by the fire department's budget. I budgeted $600 for other contract professional services, which could be anything from having somebody come out and do some IT work for us, or just somebody having to come out and do work for us that would be considered a professional contract. And then for I'm sorry.
Well, I didn't say anything, but Marsha, but it looks like our actuals has already been at 550. So if it's linear, extrapolated linearly, then that means we're looking at $1,100 in actuals for this year.
That 550 was a one-time charge to the attorney.
Okay.
So that's what that was. Anything else would probably fall under the next one, which is that $2,000 one for services. Okay? Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Okay. And then the next thing is, this is just kind of a catch-all other operating costs. Anything that comes across that doesn't fall into a specific category ends up being here. We spent $300 the first 3 quarters of the year, budgeted $350. I went ahead and upped it to about $400 for a just in case. And
Marsha?
that gives the total. Yes.
Why is this information in a different column? Looking at the FY23 budget under accounting, and we've got, electricity and utilities and stuff, and there are no numbers there. Do they appear somewhere else?
Yes, they appear under operations and maintenance. We'll get to that when we get to that class.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
That's fine.
So that gives us a total expenses for the accounting class of $158,678. Okay. Now we'll go up here to capital outlay of the second class. The capital outlay this is for the asbestos repair that remains to be done. We have an allocation of $55,000 for that. And so I'm estimating an expense of the same. Whatever we get, we'll spend. So that's $55,000 in, $55,000 out. And that's for the asbestos repair that we plan to do next year. Okay. Now we'll go up to the general administrative class. Now there's no income for this class. It's all expenses. So we've got the salary and benefits expenses for the administrator. And I kept all of those numbers the same as last year also, with the exception of the workers' compensation. I upped it by $1 because I just wanted to make sure there was enough. Everything else I think is going to be fine. So that all stays the same. Travel expenses, we've spent $110 and change so far, or through the end of March. We had budgeted $300. We went ahead and bumped that up just in case anybody needed to go anywhere for any kind of training or anything like that. So that's $650. Okay, and then we've got attorney's fees. Okay, so this is, now you can see where we had budgeted 553. No, that's, yeah, attorney's fees. 553 for attorney's fees, and we didn't spend them here. Instead, we spent them over in accounting. So, but it still comes out the same. It's a wash. But we increased that to the 600. Okay, and then other contract professional services, we put $200 in there, and then in other we put $4,000. That's hopefully for some IT support. Okay, now we're into supplies. So we kept those numbers the same as last year. That's for office supplies and furniture and fixtures and equipment. We've been very frugal, and we continue to be very frugal. So we're hoping not to spend all of it this year or next year. We'll continue with that, just being really careful. But I did go ahead and leave those numbers the same as last year. Okay, then we come down to operating costs. So there's two communication costs. There's 57,030 and there's 57,160. One is for the phones and one is for internet. So
Marsha, on that one right there, if I look at the actuals say we're going to spend $1,500 on it. Over $1,500, almost $1,600.
Let's see.
You're at $790 for a 6-month accrual. If you extrapolate that to 12 months, that looks like it would go to almost $1,600.
Okay.
That's 9 months.
So you want me to increase that to
$1,600? Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. Then? Is that a 9-month? Okay. I was thinking that was
9 months, but you're right. I just did the calculations, and you're right. It comes out to 16.
Yeah.
So I can go ahead and correct that now.
Yeah.
Okay. Training fees, we budgeted $100. We spent $50 last year and didn't have a budget for it. So I went ahead and put $100. Those are classes like with DFA, that sort of thing, or, you know, different classes that we have access to that help us do things better. Insurance and liability. This is, I left the number the same as last year. This is the number that we spent the current year. We were told, we don't have the new numbers yet for the next fiscal year, but Mike gave us an estimate of, you know, budget for at least 10% more. So that's kind of, yeah.
Marsha, I'm sorry. Bill pointed out that that was a 9-month accrual. So if I just look at the 790, you were actually right, pretty close on the 1120. You probably should change that back. The number I look at on actuals is right at 1,000.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the insurance. We budgeted for the current year 14,040. I kept it the same because we spent 12,258, and I believe we paid for the whole year already. So we had some money left over, and I'm leaving it in there to hopefully cover any increases to the rates. We don't have those numbers yet. Okay. Printing, publishing, and advertising. This is for if we need to run ads for either
Maintenance people.
Well, that and any like for the asbestos thing, we may have to run an
Sure.
ad to get bids on that. So
Yes.
Yeah,
that's what that's
we,
for. I'm sorry.
well, this is Dolly. We'll definitely be running ads for the pavilion and for the asbestos. So we know right off the bat that's two things we have to run ads for.
Right.
Dolly, are we going to have to run ads advertised for the solar?
Yes.
Yes, but that'll be in the next year's budget, Bill. It won't be in this year. We're not doing the solar in 2023.
Oh, really? Okay.
We do need to start looking at what the cost is going to be for that, though. Well, a lot can change in a year. That's true.
Yeah, it can.
Okay, I'm sorry, Marsha. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. That's okay. All right, the next item is for printing, publishing, and advertising. We didn't spend any this current year, budgeted 500. Dolly, what was the rationalization on that one? Moving this over.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now on the screen. I think that we also had planned, somehow that got it involved with the additional cost to publish, Marsha. I don't know how it got into that category, frankly, but we know that we're going to spend just one run of publishing for the example pavilion. It's going to cost us probably $400 to $500. One thing.
Okay, here's
So
here's the mistake I was making. That $600, the item above, that's for postage. I was following it across and was hitting the wrong number. So this is for ads right here.
That's for the advertising.
Okay, all right. The next number here, this 2650, this is for the copier. This is our lease and maintenance on the copier. Subscriptions and dues, we kept that number the same. And then telecommunications.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I was just going to tell them subscriptions and dues. That includes things like being a member of the Municipal League. It includes other subscriptions that we have to pay that we can't get around.
And then the 2350 is, again, that's one of them. The one up here, the 1120, one of them is the internet and the other one is the phone. And I don't know, just looking at this, which one is which, but that's those two numbers. And we did go up on this one because it looked like we needed to when I ran the numbers of where we are through the end of March. So I went ahead and bumped that up a little bit. And then this $300, again, that other operating costs, that's just kind of for expenses that don't fall in another category. We'll throw them in here, and it's usually just little things. So I left it like it was for the current year at $300. This number here is what's required by, it's what's required to show up on our budget as the money that goes from the town to the library. They actually get a whole lot more than that, but we have to actually notate on the budget that that amount is there. So that's what that is. So that leaves total expenses at.
Marsha, that's the 853?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure I'm in the right spot.
Yeah, Pat, that's the per capita that we have to pay per person in town for the library.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So then we'll go up to the top of the library class, and I'll go ahead and move this over so it's easier to see.
Okay, just let me put something on here because it's being recorded. Pam Plaza just joined the meeting on audio.
Okay,
so she's now
great.
present.
Hi, Pam. Okay, so for the library, the first income that we show is contributions and donations. Through the end of March, she had gotten $51. She had budgeted for $1,000. She took that down to $300, just so that it would maybe be a little closer to what is actually going to happen. We can always bump it up if she gets a big pile of contributions or something like that. And then we come down to her bond proceeds. So New Mexico Go bond, she's expecting to, the way these bonds work, she spends the money and then it gets reimbursed. So she's expecting to get reimbursed a total of $5,000 from these two bonds, the state bond and the county bond. And then this 17 is the grants, like the 7,500 is the state grant and aid, and the 17 is what was that one, Dolly?
That ARP for it's something to do with COVID. Yeah.
Right. So that's what the income is. And then here's all her salary and benefits. And again, I left all of those numbers the same except for the, oops. The workers' compensation fee. So all of that stays the same. And then in her regular expenses, she wasn't planning on spending anything in building repairs next year, but she is planning on spending about $800 on furniture, fixtures, and equipment. She's talking about getting a new printer and some other tech products for over there. And then down here in software, this includes her the electronic catalog that she is required to participate in. And then she's got general office supplies of about $450. And then she's got $60 for postage. Here's her portion of the rent. And then she's got her phone and internet combined in here in telecommunications. And here's her share of the electricity. And again, we're pretty much keeping with the numbers that we had for this current fiscal year, for the most part. now we're down to utilities, and the library does pay their share of utilities, and they've gone up a bit. So we went ahead and increased at least the gas, because it didn't look like there was going to be enough in that 700 to be able to do it. So here's her electricity, her gas, and her water.
Marsha, when we talk about the internet, once they finally get the fiber cut over and we get services via that instead of via SAT, how much of an impact will that have on the budget? Will it be either increase our cost or lower our cost structure?
I have no idea, because I don't know who's going to be providing service to that line.
Okay.
I mean, we really have no idea.
Right. At this point, Mary doesn't know either, Dawn. That's being driven by the grant through the Pueblo. So we don't know who's going to have to be the carrier at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
or
it
how
could
much
very
they're going to
likely
charge.
just right. And it could be just one carrier that's available, so there may not be a whole lot of choice. It may even end up being cheaper to just stay with Viasat. We don't know yet.
Okay.
Okay, so then we've got okay, so this 25,000 in buildings and structures. If we go back up here to the income, in these dollars, that's where that's coming from. And also this equipment and machinery. Okay.
I'm assuming that's going to be the storage area that they're proposing to put in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the door. She wants
And the
to
door.
do that. The door. Yeah.
But that's all funded by grants.
Yes. And then this will be books and materials for the library, $36.50, and all of that's covered by grants as well. Any questions? Okay, now we're in operations and maintenance. Okay, so this $200 in income, this is money paid by residents for extra hauling of yard waste when they go above the minimum. We charge an extra charge if somebody has more than the basic pickup. So that's what that $200 is. Okay, now when we get to operations and maintenance, we don't have an operations and maintenance person currently, but I have still left all of this, all of the salary and benefits in the budget, because we're hoping to fill that position once we find someone. So that's all there. But what we've had to do, I'm going to skip down a little bit to the contract. We bumped this number up to cover having to pay outside services for things that we don't have an employee to do. So,
well, let me ask you a question.
Look at this. I mean,
But will the cost savings we make by not paying the salary cover that $10,000?
yes.
Okay.
But
We don't get the full
I
use of
take it-
services.
yeah, but if I take it out of the budget, like if I take all of this for the employee out of the budget, I'll just have to put it back in and do a
No.
budget adjustment.
No, I understand that.
Okay,
But
so
what
we're
that tells me-
we're either going to spend it here or we're going to spend it here. Does that make
But
sense?
we're not going to spend it in both places.
No, I don't think we'll be spending it in both places.
So we may have potentially $10,000
Of savings.
exactly.
Right, right.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
so
when we
we've
get to
got
the final
budget-
number, we'll just need to remember that.
Right, right. Yeah, just when we get to the final number, yes, you'll have to remember that some of these numbers have been fluffed up as just in case, but hopefully we won't spend it all.
Mhm.
Okay. So then here in purchase property services, we've got, I kept the budgets the same as the current fiscal year for maintenance and repairs on the building and the grounds and the vehicle. This, I was a little bit concerned that it might not be enough. The truck needs tires and it needs some maintenance done to it. But I think we can get some of that done before the end of this year, maybe get the tires done before the end of this year. And that way we won't have to worry about it next year.
Mhm.
But that's what all of those numbers are. And then again, there's that 10,000 in contract labor, basically. And the supplies, I kept all of that the same as it was last year. Those were good numbers.
Except fuel.
Yeah, except for the fuel.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and we doubled that just because fuel has gone up. But if we don't have a maintenance person, that truck won't be driven very much. So there's that.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're down into operating costs. I pretty much kept, I actually came down on telecommunications because it was so low, we didn't use all of that 660, so I brought it down to 550. Our biggest electric bill is for the street lights. So I increased that to 5,000. The rest of it is probably okay, but the street lights, we needed to bump that number up.
Yeah, if we spent $3,600 for 9 months, it's going to be more than $4,400 for the year.
Right. And then we've got natural gas. The water is consistent, so we don't have to worry about that. The natural gas, I bumped up just a little bit. We're out of the cold season for this year, so I'm optimistic that 1650 is probably going to be okay. And then here's that bucket of miscellaneous expense money. We spent 1,200 of it through the end of March, had 1,750. That's probably a good number. Any questions on any of that? Okay, the next column is for the pavilion. And we have $85,000 allocated. 15,000 of it has been received, and the other part we'll be getting later. And we anticipate spending the $85,000. So that's an in and out. Okay.
Do we have a timeline on when the rest of that should come in?
When we ask for it, we have to get the bids and all of that done first. Yeah.
But it's available. It's available beginning in the next fiscal year.
Okay, so if that's July 1st?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Now,
the
let me
road
just-
project.
Marsha, can I say something, please?
Sure.
in that pavilion money, I know it's pennies, but it's pennies. We'll be able to go back and charge advertising for the pavilion, I think, against that. I have to double check it, but I think we'll be able to do that. Because it's cost.
You mean advertising for the construction?
Right, put the RFPs out, request for RFPs, yeah.
Okay, the road project column is supposed to be done by the end of this year, and when it is and we've paid for it, this column will completely come off of the budget. It's because it won't be in next year's budget at all. Okay?
Yeah.
So that gives us a total, this far bottom right number is the end result. So it's 35,000 in the red. Now, Don, I know did you get all of your questions answered, or do you have some more on your list that you wanted to ask about?
On the list, no, but on the projects, what about the asbestos abatement in the fire hall?
That's part of that 55,000.
Okay. So what we're looking at is that, are you telling me is a budget deficit of 35,000?
Right.
But there's $10,000 worth of fluff in there. So we're really probably going to realize a $25,000 budget deficit.
And it could very likely be even less than that if we continue to be as careful with our funds as we have been.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but at this point, we're certainly not going to be able to take the hours back up.
No.
We had to cut the hours for the treasurer in the library.
No, we can't. We can talk about it when you're sure that it's up to 150 again.
Well, that's not going to be next year. And
right.
If we were at 150, we would be break even within 5,000. I was anticipating when we got to 150, we would be looking at a $20,000 budget surplus, not a 5,000. So what it looks like is us doing everything flat. Our cost structure's incremented $15,000 approximately.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Did we ever get approved for the solar?
It's approved. It's just with 2 part-time people and no maintenance person, you can only do so much at one time.
Yeah, I didn't know if that would help with the cost of the lighting, which has gone up.
The big cost of the lighting, though, is the street lights, and it won't help there. The last item that's on our current capital plan is those dark skylights. What's it called? Dark sky street lights. If those are solar, and it's been too long since we put that together, and I think Justin put it together. We need to take a look at it. That might help in that area.
Yeah. Even if they weren't solar, if they were LED, it would reduce the cost pretty dramatically.
That's a good point. And I do believe that's how they were set up, as LED.
Yeah. And the reason the lights are so expensive, guys, the street lights, those are highway lights. So whenever they put the street lights in whatever wisdom, maybe that's all the choice they had, I don't know. But they put highway lights, which are expensive.
Well, quite candidly, I think using the word wisdom and the developer of this community is an oxymoron.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions or issues or things that need to be discussed about the general fund budget?
Well, I need to point out a couple of things. One, as an assembly, this is a preliminary budget, so we do have the opportunity to modify it up until July. But looks like what we're looking at is, unless we find something that we can change, and I'm not seeing it in here, we're looking at about a $25,000 budget or deficit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, John has joined us to be my backup on going over the fire department and the EMS budget. So let me pull that up.
Medical treatment, like the patient looked like he is receiving treatment for, then that leads to a permanent atrial fibrillation status. And
that's not
given
me.
EKG.
Who is that?
John, can you mute?
But that doesn't
I think John's on the phone.
Okay.
You got it. Okay, we'll do the VFD budget first. Now, we have split the fire department's budget into two classes. One is for the Cochiti-Lake Volunteer Fire Department, and one is for the Peña Blanca Volunteer Fire Department, because we are handling all of their business now. So I'm going to kind of do both of them at the same time. Just
It makes
I
sense.
think it'll be a little quicker. Yeah. Okay. So for income, Cochiti-Lake gets $105,000 from the state fire marshal, and Peña Blanca gets $81,000 for that fund. So that's those two income amounts. And then you come down into expenses. All right. So what you're looking at is this first column is actual through the end of March. And then here's the two budget numbers. We didn't have a budget for Peña Blanca last year. We only had a total budget. So that's what's showing up in this this fiscal year 22 total budget is a total budget. And then all the blue is combined in this total budget over here. Okay. So we got the income, so it's a total of $186,000. Now we get down into expenses. So for vehicle, we've got $12,000 on the Cochiti-Lake side and $10,000 on the Peña Blanca side. For maintenance and repairs, we've got $65,000 for Cochiti-Lake, $51.75 for Peña Blanca. Then you get down here into contractual services, and here is the other half of that audit that we talked about, where the town is paying for half of the audit and the fire department is paying for the other half. And they're splitting that expense between the two, between Cochiti-Lake and Peña Blanca. Other contract services, $11,000.
Let me interject a question in here. Is
Okay.
when you say fire department, is EMS rolled in there, or is that going to be a separate review?
No, this is only fire department. EMS is
Okay.
separate.
Okay.
Okay. All right. 11,000. I'll highlight it over here to the right so you can see the total. So you've got 11,000 in contract professional services. You've got 14,500 between the two for contract other services. And you got 7,000 combined for contract other. So contract services other. So did I hear somebody?
No.
No? Okay. All right. Then we come down into supplies, and we've got between the two, we've got 5,000 for software, 600 for general office supplies, most of which is in Cochiti-Lake, not as much for Peña Blanca, 3,000 for janitorial, No, 3,000 for furniture, equipment, and fixtures. I'm sorry. 500 for janitorial. 16, almost 17,000 for medical supplies. 2,000 for uniforms. 16,000 for fuel. 1,450 for basically supplies for maintaining the fleet. Drew does a lot of his own. They do it here instead of taking the vehicles to be serviced. They do it here, so it saves a ton of money. For $4,500 for tires, and then $700 for other.
Hey, John. John, question, or did you increase your fuel costs enough, do you believe, to cover how fuel's gone up? Because a lot of your actuals last year were at a lower rate per gallon.
Yes, overall.
John, that question was.
I'm sorry, John, what'd you say?
Yes, overall we did.
Okay. So you feel good about that one? Okay.
Yes.
I have a question on the like line 56, 121, the one that is.
You're breaking up, Pat.
Okay. That's Viasat for you. The one that's $150 for Cochiti-Lake and $1,300 for Peña Blanca. Do they have a bigger fleet? Do they have different people do that maintenance? Is that why their cost is so much higher?
John, you want to respond to that?
Sure. Yeah, they have about, their fleet is about twice as large as ours is. And the other part that I would, encourage maybe a mind shift change in is, although these are two separate budgets, there is some crossover between them. So I would, focus more on the combined totals as opposed to the individual line items, because we're going to have crossover, right? So for example, if we order a dozen oil filters, there's nothing to say that 6 of them can't be used on this truck and 6 on that truck, even though they were all purchased from one individual fund. So there will be some crossover in supplies and availability. Same for things like medical equipment and supplies. We're not going to buy $5,000 of medical equipment for the Peña Blanca fire station and then say, a single Band-Aid can't leave the facility, if that makes sense. So I would really, look at the total amounts between them to be able to see how much we've allocated for that specific line item as a whole, if that makes sense.
Yeah, John,
Yes,
it does. I look at it all as just one combined number. How you allocate is your business.
Okay, where were we? Operating costs. $6,500 in communication cost, which is going to be your telephones and radios. Okay. $5,500 in training. $38,000 in insurance. And again, insurance is still something that we don't have firm numbers on yet, but we're hoping that we're close. There's postage, $75. Subscriptions and dues, $500. Telecommunications, $3,100. electricity $3,500, natural gas $4,000, and water $1,800. And if you look down at this bottom line, I mean, the budget spends all the money, and that's what needs to happen with these fire marshal funds. They have to be spent. So we've got a little fluff of $500 here and $600 here. So we've got $1,100 to play with if we have to, if something goes over.
Marsha,
Any questions?
The difference? Yeah, what's the difference between the communications cost and the telecommunications?
It's there's John. I saw him.
Yes. It's funny that you asked. We had this conversation the other day as we were going over the budget as well, Pat, that all three of us kind of, cocked our heads sideways and went, I wonder what the difference is. Essentially, what we determined was they're essentially the same thing. It all depends on how we choose to internally code our expenses. So the mutual agreement amongst all of us, just to keep things kind of straight, was that telecommunications, we would code all of our expenses for phones and internet to, and we would leave the communications costs for purchases like handheld radios that we use on 911 calls, and as a backup to 57,160. If we run out of money in telecommunications for phones and internet, then we'll just start coding expenses for phones and internet to 57,030. But essentially, it's kind of up to us to, I suppose we could have put all of it in one line item and zeroed out the other, or split it. I don't know that it necessarily matters. The state has no preference on it, so it's kind of it's as clear as mud, I would say.
Exactly. Any other questions on the fire department? No? Okay, let me pull up the EMS budget. Okay. All right. So for really all intents and purposes, the EMS budget is split into two major classes. Ambulance is everything that's coming out of this office here, and then wildland fire has its own income and expenses. Okay, the New Mexico DOH grant is a one line item thing. It's got this one single grant, and it goes directly into the lease on. Is it the ambulance, John? I think it's for the ambulance. It goes directly into that.
That's correct. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And the reason that we do that is, I encourage folks to think about our revenues as either restricted or unrestricted, right? So, for example, both the COCHITI Fire Fund and the Pena Fire Fund, because they come from the Fire Protection Fund allocated by the state, they have really strict prescriptions around what we can and cannot spend that money on. So it's a restricted fund, right? The same with NMDOH grant. And so we're really limited on what we can and cannot spend it on. And so it's easiest for us to spend it on one single expenditure, one line item, to avoid any sort of questions from the state about whether or not we met the prescription of the law. So the total amount that we receive for the DOH grant, we just go ahead and allocate that to the ambulance lease payment in its entirety. And so when the state asks us, where did our money go? We simply have to provide one single line item report to them, and there's no there's minimal risk of having to move things around. That makes sense.
Makes it simple. Okay. All right. So let's go through the ambulance. All right. So other charges for services. This 71,000. That's going to be reimbursement for ambulance runs from insurance companies, and that's what that is. So that's that income. Last year was budgeted 75. John and Drew felt real comfortable with 71 for this year. Contributions and donations, they budgeted 3,000, which is the same as last year.
Hey, John, is that stuff that goes to you that's not through the nonprofit?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. You won't see anything for the nonprofit at all in any of the town budgets. The nonprofit does its own accounting.
No, I wouldn't have expected to. I just didn't realize people were giving you items like that that didn't go through the nonprofit.
No. Let's see here. You're talking about contributions, donations?
Yeah, $3,000.
Yeah, that was kind of a Cindy thing. I honestly don't know that we need it anymore. The contributions, donations line item was primarily used for like in-kind contributions from, let's say, Sandoval County. If they gave us equipment or those sorts of things, we would account for it there, even though it wasn't necessarily cash, because she felt that it was cleanest for the auditors to be able to see, where this equipment became ours and wasn't magic,
Okay. No,
so
I got you.
I don't know that we'll see anything.
It's not just people giving you cash, and it looks like your actual, it was really only about $100.
Okay. The next item down here is grants. 53,000 is what's anticipated. So that gives a total income of 127,000. Okay. Salary and wages, we've got, I'm sorry, there's some extra numbers over here because we were working on this yesterday and I didn't clean it up. But the total salary and wages, 65,000, and then the total employee benefits, 22,430. Okay, and the reason why these are more is because Addie is going on the insurance, so that's going to add to those numbers there. Any questions on any of that? Last year, well, Drew wasn't on the EMS budget for the whole year. I think he was only on it for half a year. But at any rate, it's going to be dramatically more next year. Okay.
Marsha, I've got a question.
Okay.
Zero in the budget for this year for short and long-term disability. I'm sorry, for next year.
Where are you looking?
Line 52, second row.
Nobody signed on for it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So contractual services, we've got 10,000 budgeted for professional services and 5,000 budgeted for other, which is a little less than for last year. Software, we've got 1320 budgeted. Medical supplies, 2,000, because I think a lot of that was over in the fire department side. Operating costs, we've got 5,000 for employee training. Here's the rent, $1,750. And the lease purchase. So that's where some of this is going to go. Any questions on any of that? Okay, wildland fire. With wildland fire, we get paid not only for the salaries for the wildland firefighters, but also for the use of any of our equipment, the trucks, the brush truck, anything like that, we get paid for. So they've budgeted $215,000 to come in for wildland fire, and then down here is some additional grant money that's anticipated. So altogether, and of course, this is going to be based on how many fires there are. I mean, this is just a guesstimate. But the estimated income is going to be $246,700. And then you get down into the expenses. So about $165,000 in wages, and the other costs that go along with that, which is FICA, the 2 FICAs, and the unemployment compensation and workers' compensation. So there's $17,881 in employee benefit expenses, $12,000 in travel expenses, and that's for if we send any wildland firefighters out of state and they have to stay in hotels, that's to cover those expenses. Maintenance and repairs on vehicles, $3,500. Supplies, furniture, fixture, and equipment, $31,500. Uniforms and linen, $5,000. $10,000 in fuel, totaling up to $46,500 in supplies. And then $1,750, the rent is being split between wildland fire and EMS for between those two classes. So that's the $1,750. Any questions about any of that?
Yeah, excuse me. I see some, excuse me, some brackets in the bottom. I'm trying to equate those columns, the 19,000, 11,000, and 31,000. Are those deficits that you're running? Are we forecasting?
Yeah. No, that's the current year. That's in the current year's budget. Okay.
Okay.
Actual through the end of March is the 8214. The budget was a deficit.
I see. I couldn't read the column.
But for next year, it's a zero. For next year, it's a zero.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's just a little bit left over. Actually, this is, I think my columns got a little wonky. I think this 7678 is the real surplus for the combined.
Okay. Well, as usual, John, you and Drew have a good budget.
Mhm.
Congratulations. I'm jealous.
Thank you.
No kidding.
And I appreciate the questions from the assembly. We definitely, look for. We do our best to create an accurate budget that is balanced, but we know that the more eyes on it, the better. The more questions, the better. So,
Absolutely.
Thank you for your contributions to that.
Good job, John. Hey, John, are you going to be around town hall anytime this week or next?
Likely. Today is kind of crummy for me. I'm in class right now while I'm in this budget hearing, and then next week will probably be better for me.
Give me a shout when you got some.
Okay.
Just give me a shout. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thanks, John.
Sounds good. Sure.
Okay. So, fire and EMS, they've got great budgets. We're going in right now, it looks like, with an anticipated $20,000 to $25,000 budget deficit. I just have to ask the guys everyone on the assembly, are y'all comfortable with that? Because that's going to definitely, unless something changes, going to ding us. We're going to have to hit emergency reserves.
Mm-hmm. I'm not comfortable
I was hoping
with
we
it.
could start building emergency reserves, not continue to deplete them.
Yeah.
Right.
And it tells me that next year, it tells me that what I've got to do is start talking to Dave Abbey and tell him that 150 we agreed to is no longer a good number.
Mhm. Exactly.
That's going to be fun. That's going to be real fun.
I'm sure.
Okay. Okay.
The cost of living,
Yeah.
the cost of everything has gone up. Everything.
Oh, absolutely. And if we had been sitting at 150 for the last 4 years, it wouldn't be as big a conversation. The only positive is Dave knows he kind of hosed us last year, and that was an error on his part. So maybe he'll have a little sympathy and compassion.
Yeah.
That would
All
be
right,
nice.
John. See ya.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Yeah. The only thought I have, Don, is I see your columns. You have a couple columns for contributions and donations. Wonder if we could kick up some fundraisers.
We do. We haven't had them we've never had a fundraiser for the town.
Yeah.
We've done it always for for the art group or the fire department, EMS.
Golf tournament, something like that. We did really well on when we did the car washes, and it does take a lot of manpower and a lot of help. That's the only problem. But yeah, if we could try to kick some funds in. We know what the town can do when you ask.
Yeah.
They did a great job for the fire department.
Well, they did.
Really,
But I hate to say it, but having a big fire out your back window is a big motivation. I'm not sure we'll have that for the car wash.
Yeah, but
I think the car wash they usually make.
I didn't say that.
I think the car wash usually, and this is going on memory. I think they'd make about 800 to 1,000 maybe on a car wash, doing the car wash.
Yeah, they did about 1,500. Everybody was tired. Yeah,
I'm sure.
Well.
Yeah. Let me see if I can get creative.
That's.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be a tight year. That's all there is to it. We're going to have another tight year. We're not going to have another year that we take a hit on our emergency reserves, the Raymond James Fund, and we're not going to restore the hours to the treasurer or the library. And we're going to have a deficit.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Aye.
All right. Marsha, good job. Yeah. Dolly, I know you helped out as well. Thank you, ladies, for doing this.
Wait.
Okay,
yeah, now y'all have to do the
yet.
resolution. Yeah, you got to do the resolution, and Bill's the point person for that.
Okay, good deal. Thanks, Bill.
Sure.
Okay, so do we have a resolution then to approve it?
Yeah, Bill.
Have we read it?
Bill, to read it.
Yeah, have to read it out.
I don't have that.
I don't know that we have to, Bill, I don't know that you have to read it. I know at the county commission, they just moved to.
No, we have to have a resolution, Don. We must. The FA requires it.
Dolly, let me finish talking, please. At the county commission meeting, they record it. So they actually they don't read resolutions. They move to approve or move to resolve. So if you can't find it, I think legally you could do it this way. Bill, did you find it?
No, I lost Zoom completely. I guess I was still on, but I've got it back, I think. That was on the email?
I have it. You want me to read it out?
Yes, if you would, please. Thanks.
Okay. Town of COCHITI-LAKE, Resolution 2022-06, a resolution concerning the adoption of the Town of COCHITI-LAKE 2022-2023 preliminary budget, whereas to be in compliance with state law, the State of New Mexico Department of Finance requires that the Town of COCHITI-LAKE submit a final budget for the fiscal year 2022-2023, not later than June 30th, 2022. Whereas this resolution is being introduced as a measure for the preservation of the public peace, health, and safety for the reason that the budget must be approved and submitted in the timely manner to the DFA-LGC so that the state funds are forthcoming and in place for the essential town services. Be it resolved that the Town of COCHITI-LAKE 2022-2023 preliminary budget attached hereto and incorporated by reference herein be and is approved. Duly adopted 19th day of May 2022. Okay, by the Assembly, my phone kind of went weird. By the Assembly of Town of COCHITI-LAKE at the meeting thereof in which the quorum was present for voting and voting against.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
Bill Riker, I move we approve Resolution 2022-06.
Thank you, Bill. Do we have a second?
Huddleston, second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay, let's take the vote. Mayor Pro-tem Pam Plaza.
Pam Plaza votes aye.
Bill Riker.
Bill Riker, aye.
Pat Huddleston.
Huddleston, aye.
And this is Mayor Don Topper. I vote aye. Motion's approved. The preliminary budget is approved. Is there anything else on the agenda? If not, then I guess we need a motion to adjourn.
Huddleston, I move to adjourn.
Thank you, Pat. Do we have a second?
And Pam Plaza, second.
Okay. We have a second. Go through. Pam, how do you vote?
Pam Plaza votes aye.
Bill Riker, how do you vote?
Bill Riker, aye.
Pat Huddleston.
Huddleston, aye.
And this is Don Topper. I vote aye. Motion passes. The meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for participating, and Marsha and Dolly, thank you for putting this together.
Yeah, that's a lot of hard
Thanks
work,
for-
Blake.
It is. Thank you very
It
much.
is, absolutely. I appreciate all the explanation and all the hard work that you ladies do.
Yeah, I appreciate you suffering me, but thanks. Alrighty, bye-bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.